Good evening, everyone. Hope you're having a great day. What's up? My name's Jones Angell, and so excited to be hosting our virtual Tar Heel tour. Man, we wish we were with you in person wherever you're joining us tonight. We always have such a great time traveling across the state and seeing Tar Heel fans from the mountains to the coast. But unfortunately, this is still the best way for us to do this, and not ideal. We'd much rather be there. Hopefully next year. Feels like we're getting close. But man, we're excited to be here tonight. Whether this is the first time that you've joined us on our virtual Tar Heel tour, maybe you were with us last night. We had another event where we had a great time, talked to a couple of terrific Tar Heels. But whether it's your second night in a row or your first night, doesn't matter. We're excited that you're here. And we are excited to talk Tar Heels and really what has been one of the most unique seasons ever for Carolina athletics and unique years ever, right? For all of us, no matter if we're talking athletics or not. We really do have, I think, what's going to be a fun 45 or 60 minutes or so this evening. And we have a lot of great Tar Heel guests that are coming up in just a few minutes. We're going to talk to Carolina Associate Athletic Director, Senior Associate Athletic Director. Let me get that title right. Rick Steinbacher. We're going to talk to Rick here in just a couple of minutes. Rams Club Executive Director John Montgomery is going to join us. We're going to talk to Ginny Levy, who just today, Coach Levy named the ACC Coach of the Year for women's lacrosse, and that was a no-brainer. Her team, #1 in the nation, undefeated, has rarely even been challenged this year, just won the ACC championship a couple days ago. They'll find out their NCAA tournament seeding and path coming up in a couple of days. We'll talk to Coach Levy about all of those things. And also, brand new head basketball coach for the Tar Heels, Hubert Davis, is going to join us as well. Looking forward to talking to Coach Davis about his new position and the Tar Heels moving forward. So we really do have a ton to do. And I know you'd much rather hear from all of those folks than me, but I did want to at least get you up to date on some of the terrific accomplishments that the Tar Heels have achieved over this crazy season. And keep in mind, and I'll get to this kind of at the end of this list, keep in mind that a lot of the fall sports are actually having their championships now. They're competing for their national championships now. So teams like women's soccer or men's soccer, we'd normally, of course, know the result of their season, but they're actually still in competition now. We'll get you caught up on all that here in just a second. But here's what we do know the Heels have achieved to this point. Team national championships in men's tennis and women's tennis in the ITA indoor national title. That happened a couple of months ago. Just the second time ever that the same school has had the men and the women win that event in the same year. There have been team ACC championships for field hockey. That's the 4th straight ACC title for field hockey. Men's lacrosse, women's lacrosse just won its 5th consecutive ACC championship. They have won 15 straight ACC tournament games. And also women's tennis just won its 5th consecutive ACC championship. Incredible numbers for some of those programs. Of course, back in the fall and then winter, Carolina football advancing to the Orange Bowl, being selected for the Orange Bowl, first time ever, and first time in a major bowl since 1950, when Carolina was in the Cotton Bowl. Gosh, more than 70 years ago. What a terrific accomplishment for Mac Brown and his Tar Heel football team. There have been individual national champions. Alexa Graham of women's tennis won the individual national title at the ITA Indoor National Championships, and Austin O'Connor of Carolina Wrestling won the individual national championship as well at 149 pounds. And there's been some individual conference champions as well. Peter Fountain, just a freshman, and Peter won the men's golf individual ACC championship, and also Elizabeth Colton won the all-around championship in the conference for gymnastics. So man, just some terrific things being done by individual student athletes and Tar Heel teams as well. Now, I mentioned a lot of teams still competing for those national titles. Let's get you up to date on where everybody is. Field hockey in the Final Four, no big deal, 12th consecutive year that they have made the national semifinals, at least the national semifinals. They will face Iowa on Friday. That is here in Chapel Hill in Karen Shelton Stadium. So the national semifinals and national championship will be held in Chapel Hill. The women looking for their third consecutive national title. That is Friday at 1 o'clock in the national semifinal against Iowa. Men's soccer is matching up with Stanford in the round of 16 of its NCAA tournament. That comes tomorrow. Women's soccer actually competing right now in the round of 16 against Washington. I just checked the score before we came on. It was still scoreless early in the second half of that one in the round of 16 of the NCAA women's soccer tournament. Women's tennis, #1 overall seed in its NCAA tournament. It begins play this weekend. Men's tennis, the #6 overall seed in the nation. They also begin their NCAA tournament play this weekend. Men's and women's lacrosse, mentioned both those teams as ACC champions. They find out their seeding and paths coming up this weekend in their NCAA tournaments. Certainly the women will be the #1 overall national seed. And the guys have a strong chance as well, 11-2, their finishing record in the regular season. They're currently #2 in the polls and #1 in the RPI nationally. So they have a good chance to either be the top seed or certainly one of the top 2 or 3 seeds in the NCAA tournament coming up. And also I mentioned Peter Fountain of men's golf. Men's golf just found out today it would be a #2 seed in its NCAA tournament that begins later this month. So a lot has already happened, and there is a lot that will still happen for Carolina athletics coming up over the coming weeks and months. A couple pieces of housekeeping before we bring in our guests. #1, I need to remind you that this event is being recorded. It will be made available to Rams Club members on demand after the conclusion of this event. So if you just can't get enough, if you want to hear it again, it will be available on demand once we are done. And also, we are brought to you by our really good friends at Wells Fargo. They have been one of the strongest corporate partners that Carolina athletics has had over the last decade plus. And Wells Fargo really does a terrific job supporting not just student athletes at Carolina, but students in general, and providing them with financial education tools. Think how great that would have been back when you were in school if you had had some ways to learn a little bit about what you were jumping into and the ways to manage your checkbook and manage your accounts and things that just have to happen in real life. And Wells Fargo recognizes that some people would really like that help, and they provide that to students and student athletes alike. Plus, there's the annual Wells Fargo $10,000 postgraduate scholarship that goes to a student athlete that is planning to pursue an advanced degree. And the most recent recipient of that scholarship was Gino Esposito. He is a wrestler at Carolina. His GPA was the exact same as Rick Steinbacher's GPA when he was at Carolina, 3.906. How about that? On the wrestling team and a 3.90. He was probably mad about that 1 A- that he got in his Carolina career. He, by the way, plans to attend the UNC Master of Accounting program. So thank you, Wells Fargo, for your continued support of the University of North Carolina, of Carolina athletics, and all of our students and student athletes. Okay, enough of me. Let's get started. We got a lot to talk about. And our first guest, a former All-ACC linebacker for Carolina football. He's filled multiple roles at UNC and is now a senior associate athletic director for capital projects and facilities. You see him on your screen now. That's Rick Steinbacher. Rick, how are you?
Jones, I'm great. Thanks for all the great work you do hosting all these events. And boy, I got to agree with you. I am very, very thankful for this thing called Zoom, but I cannot wait until we are back together with hundreds of Tar Heels like we have tonight on the Tar Heel Tour. I've always enjoyed the Tar Heel Tour, but boy, I assure I'm going to appreciate it even more when we get back to in person.
So, Rick, that's a great jumping off point, and I know we want to look to the future about fans returning, but before we do that, I want to look back. So everybody had enormous challenges this year and just trying to adjust and figure out how to do things safely and smartly. Facilities was an enormous part of those discussions and those challenges. How did you and your team talk, discuss? How did you get things to the point where you could safely bring in some spectators to cheer on our Tar Heel athletes?
You know, Jones, it's obviously been a tragic year for our entire world and our community. The lives lost, the dollars lost, the memories and the events that are lost. It's really been a horrible year. That said, I think it's been Carolina Athletics' greatest year ever in terms of leadership and getting through this crisis. And there's a couple of leaders that really popped to mind that make me say that. The first is Bubba. Last March when everything was shutting down hard and fast, Bubba challenged every single coach and every single member of his staff to over communicate. And I think everybody rose up to that challenge. We became better communicators. We learned how to collaborate better. And I really think we learned how to focus, hyper focus on what really matters and not worry about what doesn't matter. I get to work with all of our sport programs and coaches with the capital projects and the facilities. The two coaches, however, that I work the most with, because Bubba has me administrate their sports, is football, Coach Brown, and women's lacrosse, Jenny Levy, who you're going to hear from later tonight. Coach Brown was unbelievable. The way he led the program, the best statement I remember of him is one time early on when the guys were getting frustrated about wearing masks, they were getting frustrated about distancing. He said, guys, COVID-19 will not last forever. Your Carolina experience will. Make sure you do what you got to do to take care of COVID-19 so we can preserve this season and your Carolina experience. And what a year it was with the Orange Bowl. Jenny Levy, wow. She lost an assistant. We were in a hard hiring freeze, so she couldn't replace her. Her director of ops was on furlough a bunch of weeks in the fall. So she was down to just her and one other assistant. They had one-on-one meetings with every single student athlete on the team every single week. One of them would meet with half the team one week, the other one, the other half of the team, and then they would trade. And I think it was just amazing. It was an amazing investment on her part. And wow, it sure is paying off. That is about as dominant a team I think I've ever seen. And you'll certainly hear more from Jenny later today. Jim Phillips, our ACC commissioner, he had a great message when he visited us with a week ago. He said, I know it's a unique time for college athletics. There's name, image, and likeness. There's Supreme Court cases. There's the transfer portal. It's digging out from COVID. But he challenged everybody, don't lose your hope for college athletics and keep your passion for student athletes, because that's what we're always going to be about. And then the final leader I would point to is our chancellor, Kevin Guskiewicz. He gets a lot of credit for saving football this fall. Back in July and August, when those decisions were being made, the Big Ten and the Pac-12 were out. They weren't going to play. The Big 12 was leaning towards what the Big Ten and the Big 12 were doing. The ACC was right on the fence. Could have gone either way. The SEC was going to play no matter what. Chancellor Guskiewicz, he's an exercise and sports scientist. That's what he does. He did a great job of keeping those ACC presidents together and keeping us on a path to play football. And boy, was that a great thing, because our student athletes were striving and wanted so much to be able to keep competing. So we've just, in facilities, Jones, we've just followed those leaders, over communicated, collaborated with each other, and did everything we could to keep our student athletes safe.
By the way, quick update and a good one. Women's soccer on the board in its round of 16 matchup in the NCAA tournament. They scored. They're up 1-0 on Washington midway through the second half. Try to keep you up to date on the score of that as we move through our event. So great news there from our women's soccer program trying to advance in the NCAA tournament. Rick, what's on your and kind of Carolina athletics in general? What's on the plate right now? What are some of the major topics that you guys are discussing and thinking about? Because there does feel like there is so much going on, not just around Carolina athletics, but around college athletics.
We got a lot of games left to play, and we're looking forward to some more championships. Not going to jinx anything, but we're excited for the spring. Beyond that, Jones, there's another date that our coaches are really excited about, June 1st. Last March, the NCAA put a dead period in place due to COVID. No recruiting activities from last March through May 31 of this year. So it's going to be about 14, 15 months of no recruiting interactions on our campus. We have student athletes that have committed to us. We have student athletes that have signed with us that have never been on our campus.
Yeah.
They haven't met our coaches. That all changes June 1st. So we're working really hard now to make sure we can safely welcome student athletes back to our campus for camps, for official visits, for unofficial visits. Coach Brown has me coming to his staff meeting tomorrow just to walk his whole staff through exactly how we're going to do that. So once we get through some great postseason play here in the next couple of weeks, we'll really turn our eyes to opening this campus back up and getting student athletes and prospects back here with our coaches.
Rick, I kind of want to build off that. So many people are interested in returning to campus from a spectator point of view, and how many people can be in Kenan Stadium or the Smith Center or Dorrance Field or whatever it might be in the future. When do you think you may know that answer? Because I know you don't know right this second. And what kind of conversations are happening? What kind of things need to happen before you'll know that answer?
Yeah, Jones, first off, we're thankful after playing a football game with no fans.
Yeah.
3,500 was great.
Yeah.
After playing a bunch of basketball games with no fans, wow, that Florida State game and that Duke game were unbelievable. And if you didn't think fans had an impact on play, look at those last two basketball games where we did have some fans there. Obviously, we want a whole lot more than that. Jones, we're really optimistic. We don't know today, but the most recent executive order that the governor put out in the press conference, he said that he anticipates by June 1, no capacity constraints and no distancing requirements. That's got us pretty confident that we're going to be back to either 100% or near 100% this fall. Even in that new executive order for now, we obviously follow that guidance. The current guidance is up to 50%, but you got to keep 6 feet of distancing. That really means about 20%. Mm-hmm. Well, the most recent executive order, it had a new clause. It says that we can get waived from those requirements if we present a special plan to the North Carolina Department of Health and Human Services. We actually just did that this week. You mentioned we're hosting the field hockey Final Four and national championship. We went to Raleigh and we asked for permission to have 50% instead of only 20%. And have about 3 feet of distancing. We presented to them a plan of how we could do that safely, and they improved it in a matter of hours. So we're thrilled that we'll get to welcome a good number more people to that field hockey Final Four this weekend. We think that's a good, optimistic roadmap for perhaps the rest of this spring with postseason play. And then obviously, we don't know today what the fall is going to look like, but we're feeling more and more optimistic just about every day.
Rick, you mentioned that you work closely with football, and of course you have a long relationship with football at Carolina as a player and in various roles. It has been amazing to see what Mack Brown has been able to do with Carolina football in such a short amount of time, the Orange Bowl berth, and just what the product that we see on the field, the recruiting classes. From someone who has had a front row seat to this, the Mack Brown kind of 2.0 era, what is making this happen, not just happen, but happen so quickly? How has he been able to do this, in your opinion?
I think Coach Brown is unbelievable. I tell people all the time, he is the kindest, most compassionate, warmest, most encouraging human being I've ever been around. Jones, at the exact same time, he is the toughest, most direct, most demanding, most in-your-face person. He's just got a unique way of blending those skills. Reminds me a lot of Jenny Levy, of Anson Dorrance, of Roy Williams, of some of the great coaches that we've had. And I think his whole staff has really bought into him. They bought into his approach. And he's done a remarkable job, not only in his first year, but even more so this year, not only getting us to the Orange Bowl, but managing COVID, managing all the civil unrest and social injustices, and having some amazing conversations with his team. It's really been remarkable to watch how he does it and the unique skills that he brings to his job.
Absolutely. It's been a pleasure to watch. And of course, Coach Brown is, we allowed him to head over to the Wells Fargo Championship today. It's Roy Williams Day there at the Wells Fargo Championship, and Coach Williams and Coach Brown are playing golf. A pretty neat deal. The first 9 was with Gary Woodland, who went to Kansas, and then the second 9 with Davis Love III, of course, a great Tar Heel. And so celebrating Coach Williams today at the Wells Fargo there in Charlotte, and Coach Brown is a big part of that. before we let Rick go, I'd like to bring in John Montgomery, the executive director of the Rams Club. And John, great to see you. I thought maybe you and Rick could talk a little bit about, because you both have unique perspectives on this, just on the Rams Club, its value to Carolina athletics, its value to student athletes. And in particular, I was hoping you could discuss the Victory Fund, which I know is a big part of what Carolina is trying to do to help mitigate some of the trouble from this year and then move on into the future.
Yeah, thanks, Jones. Great to be with you. And hey, Rick, good to see you. I will say, I just came from the Wells, and we talked about, Rick, you were talking about Coach Brown and his competitive nature, and talk about Coach Williams. We know about his competitive nature, and Jenny's and Hubert's and our coaches. Those guys played pretty well today. It was fun. I did not follow them the whole time, but we had a lot of Tar Heels out at Quail today, and that was really fun. So just wanted to add that in. And Rick, I'll also, before we jump into a little bit about scholarship and student athlete experience, I do want to thank you and your team for help leading us through this tumultuous time and these difficult times. Rick has really worked hard on a roadmap to get us back to work. He and his team, to pull off the events, really, and just to make it possible for our student athletes to come back to campus and compete. So I congratulate you and thank you. You're a great colleague. And I also, Jones, when you opened and you talked about all the impressive performances by our teams and the individual student athletes, that is unbelievable. And of course, the people on this call, our friends and Rams Club members, are making that happen, and they make it happen every year. So I do want to say thank you to everybody on this call, and I am glad that we can at least get together and do this Zoom and be together. But Rick, I wanted to ask you, you have a unique perspective, and you had such a great experience as a student athlete. But talk to us about the scholarship experience, your scholarship experience, how you see the scholarship impacting others today, and then just the overall student athlete experience that we provide here at Carolina.
Sure, Monty. I don't know that I have a favorite topic more favorite than that. My scholarship to the University of North Carolina, my experience here at Chapel Hill, it's probably the greatest thing that ever happened to me. I can say that because I met my wife at Carolina, and we both have two girls that are about to graduate from Carolina. It's the single greatest thing that ever happened to me. Mac Brown offered me my scholarship. Many of the donors that are here with us tonight funded my scholarship. I now get to go to recruiting events, and Coach Brown asked me to speak about my Carolina experience. And I can start off those messages by honestly saying, I owe just about everything that I have and everything that I am to three people in this world: my mom, my dad, and Mac Brown. And I need to say the Rams Club donors as well. Because without their funding of scholarships and facilities, I would not have had my Carolina experience. And then, Monty, you mentioned how they're doing it now for hundreds of student athletes every single year. That's why I get to do what I do. That's why I get to work with Jenny Levy. I've worked with Coach Levy, I think, really closely about the last 8, maybe 9 years. Those are the years that my daughters were in middle school, high school, and now college. And I cannot think of a better influence on me as a father that getting to watch Jenny Levy and the way she leads her program and the way she helps young women exhaust their potential, find their authentic self, and do great, great things. Both my girls are graduating next weekend, one with her second degree in pharmacy, the other with her undergrad degree in exercise and sports science. So, Monty, if you ask me what my scholarship, what the Carolina experience means to me, or if you ask me what it means to hundreds of student athletes every single year, it's absolutely awesome. It's the greatest thing I've ever experienced myself, and it's the greatest thing I've ever been a part of. And the hundreds of people on this Zoom tonight are the ones that made it happen for me and hundreds of others every single year.
Well, thank you, Rick. I mean, I've heard you talk so fondly about that experience, and congratulations on the graduations. That's pretty awesome.
I've had some pretty cool days in Kenan Stadium. Next weekend may be the coolest of all.
Yeah, that is going to be great for your family. And you talk about the student athlete experience, and that's one thing we've had to deal with, how to offset lost revenue, season ticket revenue, particularly in football and basketball, how to really offset that revenue loss and continue to provide a great experience. And you know, and others know, we've been very successful. We launched the Carolina Victory Fund, and we launched that in the fall. And people on this call, our membership, they have been so responsive. And it's really been unbelievable. To date, we've had about 1,300 donors contribute, and they've contributed over $3.5 million back to the program, back to the Rams Club, that's going to directly impact our student athletes and their experience. And that is going to impact the experience of our student athletes that will be competing throughout this spring. And so I just think that is that has been an unbelievable initiative. And our members are doing that over and above making their annual contributions and their contributions they might be making to other specific areas that also impact our student athletes. So I applaud them for doing that. It's just been unbelievable. We're so thankful and grateful to everyone on this call. And I'm just glad we're all on the same team.
Monty, when I first heard the stats of the number of donors and Rams Club members who donated their 2020 season football ticket money to that effort, I was just so inspired. And then when I've heard the stats that you share about the Carolina Victory Fund, it's so awesome how many people have stepped up to help us through this crisis. The Carolina Forever campaign, those statistics and the response to that campaign targeted towards our women's teams has just been unbelievable. And then the final one that just really blew me away. When it was announced that Coach Williams was the one who spent $600,000 of his own money to fund the spring sports scholarships for the student athletes who lost their 2020 season to come back in 2021. When I got to tell my girls that story, that was really an emotional time for me. That was so neat. And then he followed that up with that even larger gift that he gave a couple of weeks or months ago. So our Rams Club members are amazing. They're inspiring, and we couldn't do what we do without them in a normal year, let alone a COVID crisis year.
Right. Well, I agree with you. What a wonderful investment overall by Coach Williams and Wanda, but particularly for bringing the student athletes back this spring. And I'll have to say, they're delivering for them. So that is great to see that investment and the return on that. So let's just say thanks to everybody. We appreciate you being with us tonight. And thank you, Rick. And thank you, Jones. And look forward to hearing from Jenny and Hubert. So we'll kick it back to you, Jones. Thanks so much.
Absolutely. Thank you, John. Thank you, Rick. And do have great news that Carolina women's soccer moving on. They ended up holding on to that 1-0 lead and eventual victory against Washington. And so they are moving on to the round of 8 of the NCAA tournament. So fantastic news there as Carolina's women's soccer team moving on. They're the number 2 overall seed in that NCAA tournament. Well, we've talked a lot about this team as we've moved through the first 30 minutes here of our program. So let's get talking to somebody who knows a whole lot about success. Just today, she was named the ACC Coach of the Year for the 2nd straight year and the 6th time in her career. The Tar Heels, as we mentioned, number 1 in the nation, just won their 5th consecutive ACC championship. They are currently the women's lacrosse team on a 25-match winning streak. That includes an 18-0 record this year. 16 of those 18 victories came against ranked opponents. Jenny Levy, also, it's not just this year, all time, she is the winningest coach in ACC women's lacrosse history with 371 career wins. There she is. Jenny, don't forget to unmute your microphone so we can hear you. We don't want to just see you talk. We want to hear you too. Jenny, how are you?
Thanks for having me. I'm glad you reminded me. Sometimes we all forget and then you look like an idiot.
Jenny, I mean, this has been an incredible year. How have you guys done this? Not just win all your matches, but be as dominant as you have to this point.
Well, last year, as everyone's talked about, was tough when the season got cut short. We were 7-0 and had a really good team. And good teams don't start when the season starts. Good teams start at the beginning of the year when you start building your foundation. So to say the least, we were devastated when, everything shut down. And obviously, if that was the worst that we've experienced, we're so lucky because it's something taken away that we enjoy, not something that was a necessity to live. And And we were very lucky, and Rick mentioned the generosity of Coach Williams paying for the 5th years to come back. And so we had 4 significant players come back for a fifth year who would have normally graduated and moved on. And then we obviously, brought in our team. So we returned a lot of great starters, and our leadership has been unbelievable. Our passion and commitment has been great. And it's just I kind of try to keep telling myself, just enjoy this, right? Enjoy what you're working with right now. It's not always like that. So we've just had a really fun time.
Coach, I had the real pleasure to talk earlier today to one of your stars, and in fact was just today named the ACC Attacker of the Year, which, by the way, what a cool title that is, to be called the Attacker of the Year. That's Jamie Ortega. And I just asked her a similar question to what I asked you, just why is this team so successful? She talked a lot about the culture of the program, not necessarily the talent level, the players, or, we're a really good passing team or anything like that. She talked a lot about the culture. How do you build that winning culture away from the field of competition?
I think it's actually the most important thing. It starts in our recruiting process. We have something, I got this from somebody and I can't remember who, I don't remember, but it's called OKGs, our kind of gals. And so I heard it once. I'm like, yeah, that's what we need. We need OKGs. So, just trying to find in the recruiting process people who fit our culture and buy into the fact that it's always going to be team first. We're relationship first as well. So everything we do in our off season in the fall is around just building, some social equity with each other and starting to understand who each other are and what makes us tick and things like that. And we really make it a priority to build these social networks within our team that are supportive and also encouraging. We want to take risks. We want to be vulnerable. We want to fail. Because if we stay safe all the time, you're never going to reach your top potential. So we really try to talk about that early, way beyond like X's and O's. It's all about our people.
We do have, by the way, a couple of questions that were sent in from some of our participants tonight, some of our viewers, and we're going to get to a couple of those for Coach Levy in just a second. But Coach, it was interesting. So yesterday we had another one of these virtual Tar Heel Tour events, and Courtney Banghart was one of our guests, the head coach of Carolina's women's basketball team, of course. And she talked a lot about you and the relationship that the two of you have. And you were somebody who reached out to her early and how you guys have just become good friends. And she asked you questions about coaching and things like that. How did that relationship get started?
Well, actually, her wife, DJ, played lacrosse and coached lacrosse. So, and so DJ and I have known each other a really long time. So I knew her wife before I knew Courtney. And when Courtney got the job, I was just really excited for them and had heard such great things about Courtney. And just like we preached to our team, like, when you're the elder person, unfortunately, I'm the elder person, you got to reach back and see if you can, support others as they're taking on new challenges and new journeys. And so I don't know how much help I've been to her, except for I did send her some Michael Jordan tequila to celebrate her getting back to the NCAA tournament. I'm just curious if it's good. So we'll report back on that. But I think it's hard. Leadership can be really challenging. I think she came in and needs to change culture, bring in a lot of new types of talent, and she's done a really good job in 2 years. So I'm really excited about her just talent as a coach and her passion and her inspiration for me, because I learned from her too. So, we've collaborated on recruiting styles and recruiting techniques that we think can help sell this unbelievable university. So it's been really fun to have her.
Jenny, Rick mentioned this a little bit earlier. He mentioned the Forever Tar Heel initiative, which is something that really goes to support and help Carolina's terrific women's programs. How have you seen that initiative affect your team and your program?
I think it's extremely important. We launched a couple of years prior to that, just women supporting women. And that was through our alumni group. And so the Forever Tar Heels took it to a whole nother level, which has been unbelievable. And I think it's important to teach our current players with former Tar Heels and people who love our student athletes, networking, leadership, mentorship, and representation. You know, we've heard a lot about that recently, but if you have big goals to get somewhere, it's easier to think that you can do it when you see somebody in that position who is female and not trying to be like a guy leading, but be a woman leading and using their skills that they've learned as a student athlete, adjust and adapt, learning how to take risks, fail, lead, speak up, be bold. All of these qualities are things that you learn on a field or in a basketball court or just being a student athlete, regardless of your sport. And those transfer very well into any industry. And I think in the 21st century and where we are with women, it couldn't be better timing to have something like Forever Tar Heels that really just highlight and encourage and inspire our next group of unbelievable women who have so much potential, which are our student athletes.
I mentioned, do have a couple questions, and I just picked out a few here from people who are with us tonight. And again, we appreciate you spending some time with us this evening. Coach, just wanted to ask you a few. This was, I thought a good one was asking about any positives that you can think of that have come out of this very difficult year. Kind of if there's maybe a way that you've rethought of how to do something or something that you didn't necessarily think was good, but after it was over, thought, oh, that's not too bad. Has there been anything like that you've seen?
Well, it has been a hard year, and I think because it's change, there's a lot of change and people don't like change, and it's forced you to do things differently. Like right now we're on a Zoom, which by the way, I would never be on the Tar Heel tour without Zoom because I'd be in season. So I'm actually pretty grateful about
there
that.
We go.
Exactly. So, I think it definitely exposes, as Rick talked about, leadership and either a positive leadership environment or a negative leadership environment. It also exposes collaboration and togetherness and commitment. It also exposes gratitude. You know, when you've had something and you just go through the motions and routine, and then all of a sudden it's taken away. All this, my kids were all like, "Oh, what do I do without sports? What do I do without lacrosse?" So I think we can always point back to gratitude if you have a hard day and you have to come to lacrosse practice. Gosh forbid, don't forget where you are and what you're doing. Look around. And so, we started the year and said, listen, we can go in two directions. We can either just survive or we can thrive. And we've actually, we talk a lot about relationships and things like that. COVID has given us the time to really invest in our current student athletes because we weren't spread thin. We didn't have recruits in town, which we like to recruit. We weren't going on the road recruiting because we couldn't. We weren't hosting people here because we were not allowed to. So what we actually ended up spending a lot of time doing was building our relationships within our program. And so if you have a good relationship with your kids and you really want to build that, it actually ended up being a great platform for that. So I'm actually looking back on the year and all of the things that were really important. We've been nasal swabbed a million times, but I would take that. We really covered a lot of grounds this year, and not all the topics have been easy. It's been some deep stuff, and we've gone through it, and it's been great.
Absolutely. All right, one last one before we let you go. We mentioned your team has been terrific this season, 18-0, 16 of those 18 wins have been against ranked teams, really only challenged a time or two in games, often winning by double digits. And the question we received is, how do you prevent a team that is as dominant as this one has been to this point? How do you stop them from being a little overconfident? And how do you keep that hunger as you move now to what is your ultimate goal, and that's winning that national championship?
Well, you'd be surprised, but our team, although we won an ACC championship on Sunday, I would say that my offensive group is constructively dissatisfied, which is another term I learned from somebody a while back. But they walked away. They won 9-4, but they're used to scoring 19 goals, and so they actually are not. The standard for them is a perfect game, and of course, there's no perfect game, as Anson will tell you. So actually, the standard is excellence, and so. When you look at a game after you've played it and there's parts of it that you're like, oh, we could have done that better. They really focus in on that. And I think that that's one of the special qualities of this group. Their standards are so high for themselves and for their units that when they walk away from a game without achieving that, it makes them humble and hungry the next day. So I would say we're going into the NCAAs hungry and humble because they didn't like how we performed in the ACC championship game.
And again, that was May 9th that the NCAA tournament brackets for lacrosse will be announced. Full expectation that the Carolina women will be the #1 overall seed in that event. Coach Levy, thank you so much for your time. See, you did it. The Zoom allowed you to be here with us. That is a good thing. So thank you so much for your time.
I know. Thanks for having me. And thanks to all the donors out there that just make our student athletes, giving them this unbelievable opportunity to be at a great school and a great athletic department. So thanks.
No doubt. Thank you, Coach, for your time. And again, that's May 9th that we'll find out when the women's lacrosse or who the women's lacrosse team is playing and their path to hopefully an NCAA championship. All right, let's get to our final guest of the night. Hard to believe he is just the 6th men's basketball coach at North Carolina since 1953. There he is. You see him there now. He just completed his 9th season on the bench as an assistant coach, had 102 wins as a player at Carolina. That included a couple of ACC championships and a Final Four in 1991. He was all ACC his final year, averaged better than 21 points per game. There you go, Hubert, in that final year as a Tar Heel. First round pick in the 1992 NBA draft, played 12 years in the NBA. Of course, spent 7 years at ESPN between that playing time and coming to the Carolina bench. He is the brand new head coach of Carolina basketball, Hubert Davis. Coach Davis, great to see you. How are you, sir?
I'm doing great. How are you doing?
I am doing wonderful. I have to imagine this last month has been a little busy. Tell us a little bit about what has been going on.
It hasn't been busy at all. I've just been, laying by a pool, just relaxing, taking naps, not making any phone calls.
That's right.
Catching up on Netflix. I've had a lot of time. I wish. It's been crazy, but it's been awesome. It really has. And when you're doing something new, you're trying to find a new rhythm in the routine. And but when you're at a place that you've always loved, and I've said this before, it's not a job. It's a mission field, it's an act of service, and the opportunity that I have every day to be around these kids and to hug them, to encourage them, support them, teach them, motivate them, all those things that Coach Smith and Coach Guthridge gave to me the 4 years that I was here, and all the things that Coach Williams gave his players 18 years he was here at North Carolina. It's an honor and a privilege to be able to do that for these guys here every day.
Hubert, what you have said that, of course, learning from Coach Smith and Coach Guthridge and learning from Coach Williams, as far as coaching is concerned and basketball is concerned, that you would walk down that same path that they walked down, but you would do it in your shoes, I think is the way that you phrased it, meaning that you'd have your spin on it and your touches to being the head coach of Carolina basketball. What does that in your mind look like right now? Understanding, of course, that we're only 1 month into this thing.
Well, I think the guys are, getting a better feel for me, me being the head coach and my personality. Who I am, Jones, is it's my faith, it's family, and it's this job. And those 3 things are at the top of the list of importance. And just to be able to have the interaction that I've had with the guys, they're finding out, and they've already known this, that I don't speak in interpretations. I'm not vague. I'm straightforward. I'm direct. And I was listening a little bit of Coach Levy and just talking about excellence. And one of the things that we have talked about every day with these guys is that's what I expect. That's the standard for us, to be excellent in 3 areas: 1, on the court; 2, in the classroom; and 3, in the community. There's no 1 out of 3. There's no 2 out of 3. What we're looking for is 3 out of 3 on a daily basis. And it's been great having those conversations and getting the guys to understand this is what I expect from them every day.
Well, what has life as the head coach been like here over the last few weeks when you're now making a bunch of important decisions, whether it's personnel or your office, for example, or anything like that? What has life been like making those decisions, which you weren't necessarily doing in your previous role?
No, not at all. You know, a lot of people ask me what's the biggest difference between being an assistant and a head coach. I would say two things. Number one is, as an assistant, every day, all day, the only thing that you're doing is making suggestions. As a head coach, all day and every day, you're making decisions, and that's a big difference. The other difference is you know, as a head coach, especially here at the University of North Carolina, you are always on. So I can be on a Zoom call right now, but it doesn't matter if I'm at the gas station, I go to the grocery store, I'm at my kid's soccer game, at my daughter's lacrosse game, I'm on there as well. And, you know, you combine that with the fact of, you know, social media, and everybody has a phone, everybody has a video. It's, you're always on everywhere that you go. But you know, one of the things that I've told people is that, you know, even though that now I am the head coach at the University of North Carolina, I have been in the spotlight before. And so,
Sure.
You know, playing here for 4 years and 12 years in the NBA and the 7 years on ESPN. So it's a place that I'm used to and I'm accustomed to, but those would be the two major things that are a difference of being a head coach compared to being an assistant coach.
Coach, I would assume one of your very first priorities was building your roster, because there was some turnover, some guys leaving for various reasons, and you needed to fill out your team for next year, including a couple of guys that have joined Carolina basketball through the transfer portal. Can you tell us about those new members of Carolina basketball some, and then also how you're trying to manage and get this roster together to where you want it for this upcoming year?
Well, the two transfers, Brady Manick from Oklahoma and Justin McCoy from Virginia, you got, like, everybody's going to just love them on the court, in the classroom, and in the community. They're just excellent in all three of those areas. And, you know, from a basketball standpoint, one of the things that I've always loved is versatile bigs. I like big guys that can defend and rebound, run the floor, you know, offensive rebound, score around the basket. But I love those big guys that can also make plays out on the perimeter too. You know, they can handle the basketball, they can shoot threes, they feel very comfortable beyond the arc. And Brady and Justin are those type of players. You know, over the last 9 years as being an assistant, the one position that I hated playing against was one of those hybrid bigs. So like, if you put a small guy on them, they can take them down to the block. If you put a bigger guy on him, he can take it out on the perimeter and make threes and put the ball on the floor and make plays from that area. And Brady, 4-year starter at Oklahoma, he's done that for 4 years at the highest level. And Justin McCoy, coming for Virginia, can do the same things as well. And I expect both of them to have big time roles and big time years out there on the court for us. And so we're still adding pieces to our team. You know, every year, Jones, our goal is this: win the ACC regular season and tournament, get to a Final Four, and win a national championship. Last year, we didn't reach any of those goals. And so to think that we can just run back with the same team, absent of Garrison Brooks and Walker Kessler and Day'Ron Sharp, and think, okay, we can achieve those goals, that would be negligent on my part. The guys on the team now, we have to get drastically better. And we've got to spend time on the floor getting better. That's the only way I know how to get better, is get down on the floor and continue to work and work and work until you get better. But we also got to add pieces. And for us to achieve those goals, we have to become better. And that's what we're going to do this summer.
We do have several questions for Coach that were sent in from folks that are joining us on the call. I'm going to get to some of those in just a second. Before we end tonight, I wanted to ask Hubert a few more things before we get to those. Coach, and this is just my opinion, and you can tell me I'm wrong, because I've been wrong plenty of times before. It seems
Never.
like that's right. I'll be more confident. I like that. I'm never wrong. It seems like individual improvement is something that is very important to you, kind of building off something that you were just talking about just getting better and working. Is that a fair statement that that individual player improvement is important to you? And then how do you help foster that as the head coach?
It is. It's huge for me because, you know, a lot of things it comes from personal experience. You know, unlike most of the guys on our team, I wasn't a McDonald's All-American. And so in order to get a chance to come to the University of North Carolina, in order to be able to play at the level that I wanted to when I was here, in order to have a chance to play at the NBA level, I had to work. And it took a lot of time in the weight room, on the court, just to put myself in a position to possibly succeed. And so for these guys, even though that they've been gifted athletically, there's a lot of work to be done. And individual development is huge for me. I want to spend time relentlessly on the court, making guys better. And, you know, one of the things that, one of the biggest impacts that I've had was that I was in the NBA and I was with the New York Knicks, and Don Nelson was my coach. Pat Riley was my coach for the first 3 years. And then Don Nelson, who's all-time winningest coach in NBA history, he came in. At the time, I was a starter for the New York Knicks. And the first conversation that I had with him, he said, "You will never play for me, Hubert." He says, "I know that you can shoot the basketball, but I need a player. I need somebody that can handle the basketball, rebound, defend. I need somebody that I can put in different spots and be successful. I don't have time to coach a one-dimensional player." And he walked right away from me. I said, "Hold up a second here. You know, that's our first conversation. I'm the starter on the New York Knicks. What's going on here?" And I'm so thankful that he told me what I needed to hear as opposed to what I wanted to hear. And what it did is it forced me to work on all parts of my game to become a player. And because of that, I ended up being in the starting lineup within a month. And I really believe a huge part in my longevity in the NBA was because the last 4 years I was playing point guard. And it was because of his talk with me, making me into a complete basketball player. That's what I want for these guys. So it doesn't matter if it's Armando or Caleb. It doesn't matter if it's Brady or RJ Davis. I want them to be players. I want them to be able to make plays on both ends of the floor in many different areas. I don't want them to be one-dimensional. And in order to be a player, it takes time. You got to be on that court and relentlessly working on your craft. And that's what we're going to be doing all summer.
All right, Coach, we have about 5 minutes left. So let me get to some of these questions that people have sent in that they'd like to hear from you. One coming in is any concerns in following a legend in Roy Williams and trying to follow in what he has been able to do in his fantastic career?
Not at all. I'm honored and privileged to be following Coach Williams. I've never compared myself against anybody. I just haven't. It's a waste of time. You know, all I can do is be the best that I can be. I never compared myself when I was playing basketball, whether it was at Carolina in the NBA. I just wanted to be the best that I could be. I never compared myself when I was at ESPN with other analysts. I just tried to be the best that I can be. Never compared myself as an assistant coach, and I won't do this, and I won't change that as a head coach. My job is to be the best that I can be at this job, and I feel no pressure, and I feel the exact opposite. I'm honored and privileged that I'm the person, the next person behind Coach Williams.
A question, Coach, about the potential of having summer pickup games, of course, with former players coming back. And if you are able to do those kind of things, your team is able to do that, and you are able to have more personal interaction this offseason compared to last offseason, just the benefits that you feel like that those kind of things may have.
It has to happen. You know, that's one of the things, major pieces that were missing last year. You know, we had so many new parts. And so RJ Davis, Caleb Love, you know, Walker Kessler, you know, Day'Ron Sharp, you know, Puff Johnson, those guys didn't have a chance to play pickup against, you know, Kobe White and against Justin Jackson and Theo Pinson and Bryce Johnson. And everybody's coming back this summer. Not only our current guys missed that, the former players missed that. I can't tell you how many text messages I've gotten saying, "I can't wait to see you in the summer, Coach. I can't wait to start back playing pickup." And it's great competition. It builds family. And I love having those relationships in the summer with the current team and the former players. I'm really excited to bring that back this summer.
Coach, a basketball question for you about the Hubert Davis offensive style and the Hubert Davis defensive style. Just what are some hallmarks that Carolina fans can expect from the way the Tar Heels would like to play with Hubert Davis in the main chair?
Well, look, I've I played here, and I believe in this place, and the foundation of who Carolina is, I believe in. It's been tested and tried, and it's been experienced by me, and it's been proven successful. I don't want to change that. I don't want to veer from that. Carolina basketball will be Carolina basketball. We're going to get after it defensively. We're going to be a great rebounding team. From an offensive standpoint, we're going to run. We're going to be one of the fastest teams in the country in terms of tempo. We're going to be a great offensive rebounding team. We're going to share the basketball. We're going to be efficient on the offensive end. I would say one of the things that would be different next year compared to last year is last year we had 4 big bigs that were always on the block and really didn't have the ability to consistently make plays out on the perimeter. And, with our bigs this year, with Brady and with Justin, and I can't tell you how much better Armando's going to be next year. He was fantastic for us. He led the team in rebounding and scoring last year. I look for him to be ACC Player of the Year next year. He's that good. And he's really working hard on his ball handling, really working hard on being able to be a player out on the perimeter. And I think that will be the major differences is our spacing and our movement will be different in large part because we have bigs and other players that can space the floor and can be effective beyond the arc.
Coach, one more viewer question, then I'll have one more to wrap it up, and then we'll get you out of here. And again, thank you so much for your time. I know you're busy. A question, the number one lesson that you learned from Coach Williams that you will take with you into this head coaching position?
You can't pick just one. I mean, there's so many things that I've learned from Coach Williams on a daily basis. I would say the biggest thing that I learned from my experience of being a player, a student, and an assistant coach here at Carolina is giving people an opportunity and a chance. I've talked to you about this before. Coach Smith and Coach Guthridge gave me a chance. They gave me an opportunity and a chance to come here to North Carolina, and listening to Rick about, what an impact it's made on his life. Everything significant in my life has happened here. I went to school here, played basketball here, fell in love with my wife here, became a Christian here. We got married here, bought our first house here, raised our 3 kids here. And so the opportunity and chance that Coach Williams gave me to be a part of his staff 9.5 years ago. And then now Bubba and the Chancellor giving me an opportunity and a chance to be the next men's head basketball coach here at Carolina. That's the biggest thing, just giving people an opportunity and a chance.
Coach, before we close things out, you've got hundreds of some of the most devoted Tar Heel fans on this call with us now. Any message that you have for them, for what they mean to your program and what they mean to Carolina athletics in total?
They mean everything to our program. That's the perfect segue to, that they gave me an opportunity and a chance to live out a dream that I've always wanted to be a part of. I had always grown up and wanted to, not just to play here. I wanted to go to school here, and they gave me an opportunity and a chance, and look what it's done for me and my family. They're doing the same things for Leaky Black. They're doing the same things for R.J. Davis and Armando Bacot. They're doing the same things for these players. Is every day they're giving them an opportunity and a chance, and they're giving them a chance in the classroom. They're giving them a chance, obviously, on the basketball court, and they're giving them a chance in the community to be able to use all their gifts and talents in other ways other than just basketball. They're giving them a chance, and I'm so thankful. I'm humbled. I'm appreciative of the opportunities and the chance that they've been giving our players every year. I can't thank them enough.
Coach, it's great to see you again. Appreciate your time. I know you're super busy right now with a million things going on, so it's always so kind of you to give us a few minutes. And gosh, we're all looking forward to this upcoming season of Carolina basketball.
Yep, me too. I'm ready to go.
Thank you, Hubert. That's Hubert Davis, brand new head coach of Carolina basketball. He's going to be our final guest today. I want to thank you again, not just for being here tonight, but for what you do for Carolina. You heard it from Rick, you heard it from John, you heard it from Coach Levy and Coach Davis as well. What we do could not happen without you. So thank you so much for those opportunities that you give us and you give our student athletes here in Chapel Hill. Hopefully next spring, we'll get to shake your hand. We'll get to put our arm around your shoulder. We'll get to be there in person. We can't wait to do so. Until then, though, thank you again for being here tonight, and go Heels.